March 1943, Vickers Armstrong Testing Grounds, Newcastle upon Tyne. Military observers stand 50 yards from a sandbag wall. A commando fires 7 rounds at the target. Not one observer identifies the sound as gunfire. The bolt working louder than the shot itself. One witness describes it as similar to a pellet gun. Another compares it to a door closing. The De Lisle Commando carbine had just demonstrated something no Allied weapon could match. Rifle accuracy at 200 yards, a report barely louder than conversation, and stopping power that dropped targets instantly. The problem facing British special operations in 1942 was brutally simple. Sentries had to die silently. Coastal raids demanded stealth. Behind enemy lines, a single gunshot meant mission failure, capture, execution. The Welrod pistol worked at contact distance 7 yards maximum. Beyond that, accuracy vanished. The silenced Sten fired 9mm ammunition at 1120 feet per second, supersonic, producing an audible crack no suppressor could eliminate. American silenced weapons used .22 long rifle, effective at 50 feet but lacking the power to guarantee instant incapacitation. What Commandos needed was a rifle. What they got instead were pistols pretending to be enough. The Welrod could kill silently, but only if you pressed the muzzle against the target. 15 feet away, accuracy became theoretical. 30 feet, impossible. 7 rounds in a magazine meant 1 sentry per weapon, unless you could reload while the guard tower searched for you. The integral suppressor degraded after 10 to 15 shots. Rubber baffles broke down from heat and pressure. Each mission required fresh weapons or acceptance that the suppressor would fail mid-operation. The silenced Sten Mark IIS offered capacity 32 rounds but created mechanical noise from its reciprocating bolt. Every shot cycled the action. Metal sliding on metal, springs compressing and releasing. The suppressor reduced muzzle blast to 89.5 decibels, but the action noise defeated the purpose. Fire it on full automatic and the suppressor baffles would fail within magazines. German sentries might not hear the shot, but they would hear the weapon. German forces faced the same problem but never solved it. Experimental MP40 suppressors tested at Kummersdorf in 1943 required special subsonic 9mm ammunition that was never standardized for production. Carabiner 98 rifle suppressors existed but saw virtually no issue to combat units. The fundamental German failure was ammunition. Standard 9mm Parabellum and 7.92 by 57mm Mauser was supersonic. Physics dictated that supersonic bullets create sonic cracks that no suppressor can silence. Without subsonic ammunition in inventory, German suppressor development hit an insurmountable wall. Britain had an advantage that British planners initially failed to recognise. American Lend-Lease provided Thompson submachine guns and Coltham 1911 pistols, both chambered in 45 ACP. The cartridge was already in British supply chains. More critically, 45 ACP was inherently subsonic. 230 grain bullets at 830 feet per second. No sonic crack, no special ammunition required. Standard military ball ammunition worked perfectly. The solution existed in British armories. It simply needed someone to recognise it. William Godfrey De Lisle was born in South Africa in 1905. By age 16, he was experimenting with homemade suppressors, fashioning them from cocoa tins to quietly shoot rabbits with .22 rifles. He refined the concept over 2 decades, building progressively more effective designs. When war came, he joined the Ministry of Aircraft Production. His suppressor expertise remained unknown to military planners until meat rationing forced his hand. De Lisle built a silenced .22 Browning semi-automatic pistol for poaching small game on the Berkshire Downs, quietly dispatching rabbits for the table while technically breaking rationing laws. Major Sir Malcolm Campbell saw the weapon. Campbell held world land and water speed records. More relevantly, he served in combined operations under Lord Louis Mountbatten. Campbell understood immediately what De Lisle had created. Not a poaching tool, an assassination weapon. Campbell brought De Lisle to Combined Operations Headquarters. Early 1943 demonstrations proved the concept. De Lisle fired the weapon from the roof of the New Adelphi building in London, shooting into the River Thames. Pedestrians on the embankment showed no reaction. Another test at Wilkes Gunmakers near Piccadilly involved firing across the street at a chimney. Again, no one noticed. The Ministry of Aircraft Production released De Lisle for full-time weapons development. De Lisle initially tested 9mm Parabellum, but it failed catastrophically. The cartridge produced 1120 feet per second velocity, supersonic, creating the crack that doomed the silenced Steen. 45 ACP solved everything. 830 feet per second, comfortably subsonic. 230 grain bullets provided stopping power that 9mm could not match. The ammunition was already in inventory through American weapons. No special procurement required. De Lisle selected the short magazine Lee Enfield Mark III action as his base. Proven, reliable, and readily available. The bolt action created no cycling noise. Manual operation meant the shooter controlled every sound. The suppressor design was revolutionary. 16 inches long, integrated into the weapon as a permanent component. The barrel came from Thompson M 1928 or M1A1 submachine guns, cut to 7 to 7.25 inches of rifled length. Multiple vent. Holes drilled around the barrel circumference bled propellant gases into the suppressor before the bullet exited. This ported barrel design reduced the high-pressure gas column that normally produces a weapons report. The gases entered an expansion chamber where they cooled and slowed. 10 to 13 duralumin baffles arranged in a spiral forced gases to swirl transversely to the bullet's path. This Archimedes screw configuration progressively reduced gas velocity. By the time gases exited the muzzle, they moved at near ambient pressure. Virtually no report. The counter-bored muzzle prevented vacuum collapse. Normal suppressors create low pressure behind the bullet. When atmospheric pressure rushes back in, it produces an audible crack. De Lisle's flared internal muzzle profile eliminated this entirely. Some versions included sound-absorbing materials between baffles, felt, rubber, or asbestos protected by thin brass sheaths. The magazine well-accepted modified Colt M1911 pistol magazines. Standard capacity was 7 rounds. Extended magazines held 11. The receiver modifications included removing the charger bridge, shortening the bolt by several inches, and recessing the bolt face for rimless 45 ACP cartridges. The result weighed 7 pounds 8 ounces unloaded. Overall length 35.6 inches. Effective range 200 yards. Sound level 85.5 decibels. If you're finding this deep dive into British engineering interesting, subscribing helps the channel and ensures you do not miss the next one. Ford Dagenham produced 17 handmade prototypes in the factory toolroom. Final assembly occurred in the manager's ARP dugout. De Lisle worked full-time, assisted by a foreman and craftsman from Holland and Bapty and Company. Summer 1944, Sterling Engineering received a contract for 500 carbines, 450 standard Mark II Commando models, and 50 airborne variants with folding metal stocks. The prototypes went immediately to British Commandos for raids along occupied French coast, late 1943. The first combat reports came back. Sentries died silently. German coastal garrisons never heard the shots. Burma provided the most detailed combat documentation. British snipers positioned themselves near roads behind Japanese lines. Ian Skennerton recorded this first-hand account. Snipers silently dispatched a Japanese soldier in each lorry that passed. The lorry would stop, but as no shot was heard, Japanese forces found it hard to believe they had been fired upon, or from where. 2 or 3 snipers working one road bagged 3 or 4 soldiers in each lorry. Japanese units could not identify the threat. Men died. No gunfire, no muzzle flash. The psychological effect was devastating. OSS Captain Mitchell Werbell used De Lisle's in Burma. His post-war testimony is precise. We worked a couple against sentries before raids, and they were something else, better than the stuff we were issued. Both our people and the British used them in Indochina. Merrill's marauders used them to terrorize and scare the Japanese at night and in ambush. JEDBA teams, Joint SOE and OSS, Special Operations Units, also employed the weapon. American JEDBA commander E. Michael Burke claimed 2 hits against field-grade Nazi officers early in 1944, using a De Lisle left behind by an SOE operative. The most detailed operator testimony comes from Major D.I.A. Mack, 1st Battalion Royal Scots Fusiliers, Malayan Emergency. His diary entry from February 13, 1955. I and my platoon tried out a new weapon today. The De Lisle Silent Carbine. It was the first time I've ever seen a silent weapon fired, and it was rather uncanny. There was no bang whatsoever. Just the click of the released firing pin, the whiz of the bullet, not heard normally, and the thump as the bullet hits the stop bank or body. In the jungle, most of the noises would be smothered and would pass unnoticed, if not unheard. December 1950, FARELF Training Center demonstration. A De Lisle carbine fired 5 rounds within 50 yards of the audience. Not one member realized that a rifle had been fired. The weapon achieved what modern suppressor designers still struggle to replicate: 85.5 decibels. For comparison, modern suppressed handguns produce 117 to 140 decibels. The De Lisle was 30 to 55 decibels quieter than contemporary suppressed pistols, roughly the volume of a vacuum cleaner at close range. Compare this to Allied alternatives. The Welrod pistol achieved 73 decibels, the quietest of all Allied silenced weapons, but effective range was 7 to 30 yards maximum. The weapon was designed for contact distance assassination. Place the muzzle against the target and fire. Beyond 15 feet, accuracy degraded catastrophically. The suppressor lasted 10 to 15 shots before rubber baffles failed. The Sten Mark IIS produced 89.5 decibels, with moderate suppressor life if used on semi-automatic. Full automatic fire would destroy baffles within magazines. Effective range 100 meters, but mechanical noise from the reciprocating bolt defeated stealth in close quarters. The high standard HDM impressed President Roosevelt during an Oval Office demonstration. Bill Donovan fired it, and Roosevelt did not hear the shots. But 22 long rifle lacked stopping power. Effective range 50 feet. Suppressor life 150 to 250 rounds before degradation. The De Lisle uniquely combined near Welrod quietness with rifle-level range and stopping power. No other Allied weapon achieved this. German forces never developed an equivalent. Their MP40 suppressors remained experimental. Carabiner 98 suppressors saw virtually no production. The ammunition's problem was insurmountable. Without standardized subsonic cartridges, German suppressors could reduce but never eliminate the sonic crack. British forces had 45 ACP readily available. Germany had nothing comparable. The Sterling engineering contract was terminated December 20, 1945. V-rocket attacks destroyed much of Sterling's records. The war's end eliminated urgency. 106 carbines were completed against a contract for 500. The 50 planned airborne folding stock variants were cancelled. Only 1 to 2 prototypes were ever made. One surviving example resides at the Small Arms School Corps collection in Warminster. Total verified production approximately 130 to 150 units. This makes the De Lisle among the rarest military small arms of World War II. Serial numbers observed as high as 209 may indicate internal numbering rather than total production. Post-war service continued through the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. The Malayan Emergency, 1948 to 1960, saw extensive De Lisle use. General Gerald Templer photographed a test-firing one in Perak, Malaya, in 1952. Some carbines were reconditioned at Enfield specifically for Malayan service. Claims of SAS use during Northern Ireland troubles remain unsubstantiated. Modern reproductions come from US armament manufacturing at $6,500 and British manufacturer TW Chambers at approximately £4,344. In the United States, any De Lisle requires dual NFA registration, as both a short-barreled rifle and a suppressor. The engineering achievement stands apart 8 decades later. Armament Research Services concludes the De Lisle remains close to the zenith of quiet operation in a shoulder arm. The combination of inherently subsonic ammunition, integral suppressor with massive internal volume, ported barrel and manual bolt action, produced results modern weapons rarely match. The Heckler & Koch MP5SD and Russian AS Val show clear conceptual debt to De Lisle's work. Mitchell Werbel, that OSS officer who used De Lisle's in Burma, developed the MAC destroyer carbine and other suppressed weapons for Vietnam-era special forces, directly influenced by his wartime experience with the De Lisle. British Patent 579168, filed May 8, 1943 and granted July 25, 1946, remained classified throughout the war. The specifications describe improvements achieving gas exit at sufficiently low velocity as to produce very little or no sound, engineering language for what operators experienced as near-total silence. William Godfrey de Lisle never received public recognition during his lifetime. His weapon was too classified, too specialized, produced in too few numbers for fame. But operators who used it knew. The weapon that let you kill at 200 yards while standing beside enemy soldiers who never heard a thing. March 1943. Vickers Armstrong Testing Grounds. Observers 50 yards from the firing line. 7 rounds fired. Not one observer identifies gunfire. The De Lisle Commando carbine proved what British engineering could achieve when unconventional thinking met urgent operational need. A schoolboy's cocoa tin experiments became Britain's most effective silent killing tool. Where Germany failed, despite massive industrial resources, one British engineer with decades of amateur experimentation succeeded. Where American weapons sacrificed range for silence, or silence for power, the De Lisle delivered both. 130 weapons changed special operations forever. The sentries who died never heard the shot. Their comrades never identified the threat. British commandos completed missions that should have been impossible. That is what British engineering accomplished when it mattered most.
Thank you for watching the audio. Please subscribe to the channel to listen to more about other World War II military campaigns. Thank you so much.